Hanukkah. Welcome to the healing cave of Xayun Waho. So I'm only going to say a few things at first about all the stuff that's been happening with Coyote and the Akadwa. Honestly, nothing has been happening with the Akadwa except that I personally am disassociating myself from him. Been arrested on 8 felony counts of abuse and all other kinds of stuff, so I'm just going to let it sit at that. The Akadwa has nothing to do with him, that's all I'll say. He was the one who named it that and started, giving transmissions to people. But, that's all I'm going to say. I'm perfectly comfortable separating the energy from the man. He did not originate it, he didn't invent it. And I think that a lot of people have been interested in this work and this energy for a very long time. And some people are even coming forward to me and talking to me, telling me that they are comfortable with the energy and they felt called to work with it, but they've never vibed with him. They've never vibed with that whole way or his energy personally, or they had a weird vibe or something like that. And so I think that it's time to get the word out about this powerful energy healing modality that not a lot of people know about. Everybody who ends up working with it is like, this is crazy. This is like, it's like magic or mana from a video game. It can give you this incredible extra source of energy. It can be incredibly spiritually transformational, alchemizing of all the different internal and external energies that circulate through the body, and nobody's using it. There are a lot of practitioners out there, but it's never like taken off like Reiki has. I'm not sure I want it to do that because I don't want it to become, super popularized and watered down or whatever. And everybody does their own thing eventually. The whole point of it is supposed to be unity, supposed to be the alchemical uniting of different opposing energies in order to transcend, in order to integrate them and move beyond them. And eventually, just to give you a little more information on the energy, which of course I'm now calling Xayun Waho, which means most sacred unity, and that's what I'm going to be using. Eventually I will shut up about all of this stuff and just go right into these things. The whole point is unification or unity of opposing energies. One of the most interesting things that this energy has done to me is given me what Carlos Castaneda called a certain fluidity of the energetic systems of the body, so that you are able to, at will, move the assemblage point to different locations. In Carlos Castaneda's literature, if you move it within the luminous energy field, or also called the luminous egg, that's called a shift of the assemblage point. If you move it to a place outside of the luminous egg, which is much more difficult, that's called moving it. I will talk more about my own personal experience with all of this stuff, what it does to me and how it works. Suffice it to say, keeping it in place, which is called a fixation of the assemblage point, is a lot more difficult than just moving it around over here. If you move it around over here and you're experiencing something, it gives you all these, fascinating new types of perception. It floods your whole system with a certain type of energy, as though you are merging with the object of your concentration. This is the same essential process as Buddhist meditation, other types of shamanic practice, in which you put your own consciousness into the consciousness of something else. Not the consciousness, hopefully, of another person in order to influence them or to cause them to behave in a different way, although certainly that is possible. That is what we consider, at least in my traditions, like the only black magic. You do not mess with another person's self-agency, you do not mess with another person's will, which honestly is why all this stuff that Coyote was up to is so offensive. So, I just had to, one more thing about that nonsense. Moving the assemblage point, what the Xayun Waho has done for me over 20 years of working with it is create this energetic system that has the fluidity and capacity to move my assemblage point or shift my assemblage point. And it's such a rich practice. I feel like not enough is even said about it in the Castaneda stuff, because the focus is on literally altering your reality, altering perception so much that you are in a different reality. And that's all great. But I have also noticed that once I'm done doing that thing, moving or shifting the assemblage point to a certain place, it snaps back into place as soon as I stop. So that's also what's meant by fluidity. Moving the assemblage point and getting it to stay there is really freaking difficult, right? Normally. But with the energy of Xayun Waho that I've used for so long, it has given me that type of fluidity. The other amazing thing about this energy, formerly known as the Akadwa, and just so you know, there will be other practitioners who are still calling it Akadwa and are completely comfortable with that. I have never been comfortable with Crowley, and Crowley worked with this chant Akadwa, and so Coyote made a connection and ran with it from there. I don't like it. I'm moving on. Okay, enough about that. There will be other practitioners who are still calling it Akadwa, and that's fine. You know, it's the same stuff. But the other thing, because it is an energy of unification, my own personal energies and the other energies that I've been able to work with have also come into the mix. And so essentially, if anybody works with it for long enough, not only is it a complete system of alchemical, spiritual transformation, it is also an energy that will get you to the point of you, if that makes any sense. Like your soul purpose, if that was sold to us a long time ago, back in the early days, it was like to help you find your soul purpose. I had no idea how it was supposed to do that. It sounds kind of new agey and hokey to me. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Is it going to tell me through some voice or something? Like, no, it's to fill in the cracks, to give you enough energy to live your life impeccably in a shamanic sense, so that your purpose becomes clear, so that all of the energies of your system have been merged and they are their own unique thing. When we're shoved into these bodies as spirit beings, there's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with. Old karma, old stuff in our genes, old stuff in our genealogies, our ancestries, spiritual or lack of spiritual virtue, which is a big thing that I don't think is discussed enough, because we continually see people like Mr. K doing great spiritual things and great spiritual work while at the same time being pigs, and I'm tired of it. So I also want to eventually talk about what I feel is spiritual virtue. There are concepts for these: moral and ethical virtue, treating others with respect and kindness, not controlling anybody else, and how these energies should lead us to that as well. We're not just talking about being able to move your assemblage point and blast yourself off into space, alter your perception without drugs. All of that is great and wonderful. And if you want to put it into magical practice, whatever your magical practice is, to craft and manifest the life of your dreams, then by all means do that, as long as you're not messing with anybody else. Even Crowley, the law of Thelema, love should be the law, love under will, and it harm none, do as ye will, or whatever the stuff is. That's all fantastic. It sounds great, but all the stuff in between, that these men have done, not living their lives according to their own tenets, it boggles my mind. So I do want to also talk about that. The other stuff that, of course, I always bring into the mix is Taoist Neidan, which is internal alchemy. I consider myself a Taoist as much as I consider myself a Toltec. You know what I mean? These are the two main traditions from which I have gleaned the most spiritual richness in my entire journey, right? These are where I take the majority of my practices from, and I do feel very Taoist-y, if that makes any sense. When I was a kid, I was into this Asian culture like nothing else, and I was, drawing the calligraphy symbols, and I was into making paper and folding paper, origami. Like, it was just always this weird Asian focus. So naturally, as a spiritual nut job, I believe, probably have had several lifetimes as a Taoist practitioner in various Asian countries. Cannot say that I have no Asian ancestry in this body. I do, however, have Mexican ancestry, and also because of that, I've always felt very attracted to the ancient Mexican practices. Again, going back to the Carlos Castaneda stuff, I had no idea that was part of a Toltec lineage. And what is Toltec or Mexica is also very difficult to define, just like what is Taoist is very difficult to define. We need to understand and appreciate that, right? So, what I wanted to do today is just demonstrate something very simple for you guys, working with the energy of Xayun Waho, and also having people come to me and ask me, how do you mix in the Taoist stuff? All right. One wonderful way to do it is through mudra, and I forget even what the Taoist term for mudra is, honestly. We all just say mudra now. When people are first starting out working with Xayun Waho, I usually tell them to do this mudra. Either, any variation of putting all of the fingers together. It's not just a metaphor, it's not getting into the prayer position, although this one is fine. The point is bringing together your hands and all of the meridian points that flow through your arms and throughout the rest of your body in order to concentrate your energy internally. Internal alchemy, that's Neidan, right? Okay, so what do we do when we have something like Xayun Waho? Well, it's supposed to live within the heart space, and so if you want to, you go within and you start feeling around that heart space as you're intending to activate the energy. You will start to feel it move, you will start to feel hot, cool, tingly, magnet stuff, heaviness, whatever, all the different aspects of Xayun Waho that pop up. All right, I used to call them varieties. Coyote made a very interesting point that they're not so much different energies, they're the same energy, they're just pushed in a different direction. So he was calling them directions, I like to call them aspects, because aspect moving towards moving towards spect, to see. They're just different refractions. I also call them refractions, as if light shined through a prism. Excuse me. So you're starting out that way. That's one way to do it. Internally focusing the energy, building it up internally before working with it in a different way. Because the interesting thing about this energy is so strange. Yeah, it lives in the heart space. Yeah, it starts to do things internally or whatever, but it constantly has this outward expanding in a sphere. It's difficult to sort of, move it through a specific way. I am using the force. I am, blasting you with Reiki or whatever. Or even just moving chi through your system, through breathing, through intention and all of that, moving it through the arms and the hands to the meridian centers or whatever. Xayun Waho has this tendency to expand like a sphere, like a small, slow-moving sun or something like that. Or I've heard it described as plasma, but again, it's not just like off in any direction. It's always been this continual expansion outwards, all right? So when you do activate it in a particular place, that's usually the way to think about it. And if you're thinking about the cauldrons or the dantians of the body or even the chakras, that's a perfect way to use an energy. Go to the center, expand it out in all directions, as in a balloon or a sphere, right? So that's some stuff to begin with. However, once you're ready and you've filled up your internal systems or whatever, you open the hands, and what I like to get people to do is point them down towards the earth at your sides. So I have a little bit of a lip in my chair, not really arms so much, but what we're doing is just letting them hang down to the sides. Of course, you're going to go through all your relaxation processes and, maybe creating your sacred space and all of that stuff. But again, I'm just telling you a couple tips and techniques to work with this energy. So once you've started activating it, once you've started building it up, then we're going to go to, in some ways, what's called Neidan, which is external alchemy. External alchemy more specifically refers to the practices that the ancient Taoists used to engage in, which were the mixing of different substances in order to create the pill of immortality. It's also, however, used to describe working with energies that come from outside of yourself. Okay, so Qigong also gets into this a little bit because you're pulling energy from the air and from the nature around you, from the sun, from the moon. But then, of course, Neidan, internal alchemy, the point is to gather up all those energies and then circulate them throughout the body, however that is done, however you want to do that. Obviously, there are a lot of techniques for doing that. So what we're doing here, using something like Xayun Waho, even though it resides in your space, since it kind of creates this space and moves to the space around you and interacts with your auric field, with the etheric body, with the mental body, with the emotional body, with the astral body, with all the bodies, and is moving out to the space, it is also now interacting with the air and the humidity and the earth below you and the heavens above. I noticed back in the day when I was working with the Ikadua, I noticed that it felt very different, characteristically very different, when I was using it in Texas on a trip than when I was using it in California, where I got it from. The area that I was in California was very dry, very arid climate, very deserty, and it felt a certain way. And then when I when I visited Texas to see some family, there was just a totally different quality. It was like it was influenced by the minerals in the soil, and it felt different to me. It was influenced by the plant life around me. Much like Waidan or Qigong, you're using the external energies around you, cultivating those natural energies, and then doing the Neidan or Neigong related practices, obviously, in order to mix them internally, right? So then I think it's important to start feeling the space around you, the energy that you're activating around you, and to go downward. So I'm going down into the earth. So this is something that you see in Qigong practice, in Neigong practice, in Neidan, which is letting everything go, focusing on the earth. The earth in Taoist terms is considered to be pure yin. That does not mean pure yin as in the pure force of yin, but it is the physical representation of pure yin, if that makes any sense. Just like the heavens or the cosmos are the physical representation of pure yang in this system. Pure yin and pure yang do not exist in the middle world, in this three-dimensional reality. I mean, they exist, but they're mixed. The interaction of them in Taoist terms is what creates the 10,000 things. I think like a Western occultist might say myriad things. It means all the things. It doesn't just mean 10,000, obviously. There are more than 10,000 things. You know what I mean? So it's the interaction. Nothing in this world is not both yin and yang, even a black hole or a supernova. But that's getting close. All right. So the earth is pure yin. So yin is about yielding and release, letting go, all of that stuff. And as it is about yielding and release, it is also about recycling. And it is Tai Chi, Qigong, Neidan, Neigong, whatever you're dealing with, all of these Taoist practices. If you allow energy to go into the earth responds, and you will start to feel a boom, 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 boom. It's a weird feeling, and it's very obvious. It's very magnetic. Once you really get down there, you start to feel it moving up your legs, in particular, through your feet, and then through the core of your body. And it's just a weird jolt. What is happening is the earth is responding to the energy that you are releasing to it. So you cannot give the earth as a representation of pure yin. You cannot give the earth anything that it won't know what to do with. I'll say anything. There's one more point I want to make about the three treasures, but that might be a little much for this video. So again, we are working with Xayun Waho. We're not just working with the energies of the earth or natural chi of the body. We're using an external energy source. Even though it resides in the heart space, all of that stuff, it is still so expansive that in my experience, it's not really a good idea to try to shove Xayun Waho into the smaller spaces. It's always going to want to expand. All right, so I'm activating it. I've spent some time building it up within my body, and it wants to go outward. It wants to expand. It wants to take our mind, our perception with it as it expands. And so, to start with, we always go to the earth. At first, to bring in a little more Taoisty practice, all you really have to do is sense and sort of go downward into that darkness, that space down there, the cool womb of the mother, and allow yourself to forget. So you're letting things go, letting things go. It's called sitting and forgetting. It's not always done with the hands down or thinking of the earth or whatever. It is just a process of clearing your mind, clearing your field, so that you're not attaching onto anything. That is a yin aspect of the mind. In general, the mind or your consciousness has mainly a yang aspect and a yin aspect. There are all kinds of different little mental powers in between, maybe 10,000, I don't know. But in general, the yang aspect is that which is conscious and clings to things, so think left brain. And the yin aspect is that which is not unconscious necessarily, but it's just sort of in the background, and it is aware of things without clinging to them. So if you go completely into it, yes, you will pass out. All right. If you go too far into the yang consciousness, it's like like being on a bunch of acid or something like that. And it's a little too analytical. It's a little too crazy. You can also think of this as having to do with the third eye, which is the yang aspect, and the animal eye, or what is called the jade pillow area. It's sort of like all the back of the head, and it's not a point. It's it's like a negative black screen at the back of your mind, the back of your head, the back of your consciousness. Now, the perfect combination of those two things is to find somehow to be completely aware and conscious with the yang aspect of your mind, but also completely allowing. You're allowing things to just pass through your awareness while not clinging to them, and while not becoming unaware, becoming unconscious, giving yourself too much to the yin aspect of your mind. All right, the perfect consciousness is right in between them. To me, this is what Castaneda referred to as the second attention. There are a lot of differences, and there are a lot of ways to interpret that. How much you go into one pole or the other, the yin or the yang aspects of consciousness, is up to you. And there are all kinds of different flavors of awareness and consciousness and perception in between. But to me, that's what it is. It's not analyzing, but it's being totally aware, and it's just allowing your experience to move through you. It's also very much in line with a lot of Buddhist styles of meditation, but I don't think that they necessarily bridge those two things. So when we're doing the downward energy and we're just letting go, it is more appropriate to sink into the back of your skull, the back of your mind, and just let yourself forget. Let those things go. All right? So moving more towards the yin aspect of your consciousness. Let's just do that for a bit. So we've built up energy within us. These are just images to look pleasant, We've done our mudra, whatever it is. I'll show you some more as well. Then as the energy is moving out, I'm going to point the hands downward. Relax the shoulders. If you have to keep your hands up a bit, your arms up a bit, that's totally fine. And what we're doing is, since the energy of Xayun Waho has expanded, we're now not working with the internal stuff. We're working with the energy up here and down here and around here and around all of the dantians. It's much more expansive. So I like to think of myself as a sort of statue or a sort of sentinel, whether I'm sitting or standing, and you can do the standing as well. And you're just allowing yourself to slip into that yin aspect of your consciousness, And then you can sort of follow it downwards if you really want to. And that will also, as your mind moves downwards and has that feeling of moving downwards and following a downward flow, then you will help to move energy downwards into the earth. Also, having the hands down here, you're not like, super strong, powerful, tense. This is all relaxation. And so, if your chair has little arms or whatever, and you have to, like this, spread your arms out, that's totally fine. But, you want to relax the shoulders, and you want to have that feeling of just sort of melting down, right? And you're allowing energy to move downwards. So let's just do that for a bit. Now, again, because you have two aspects of your consciousness, this is also called split attention. You can focus on more than one thing, all right, or more than one thing at a time. That's what I meant to say. So you can have you can have one aspect of your consciousness tuned to the yin, going down, letting go, releasing, yielding, all of that stuff, and then the other little awareness, because you're not just passing out. If it was just then you wouldn't have to do anything, right? And you wouldn't be meditating or working with energy. The other aspect of your consciousness, the yang aspect of it, the more aware, conscious aspect of your consciousness, can be focused on continuing to activate Xayun Waho. You could also use this with Reiki if you wanted to. It's just not exclusive to the modality that I'm teaching. I just want to make that clear. But in general, this energy, because it's so expansive like that, then I find that this is what has come to me naturally over the years. Always got to do this when I'm starting a practice, all right? Then we can move to something like this in front of the heart, in front of the chest, or we can move to this and having the hands completely outstretched, all right? Again, not super tense, just kind of like natural. And continuing to just allow to happen, but also just having that one little intention from the yang part of your consciousness to continue to activate the energy, right? And then when we're done with that, we can move to up here. And again, if you want to, you can experiment with different ones like this. So sort of looking like a sentinel. You can experiment with it like this. Somewhere in between is usually what I end up with. Now, when you're doing all of these, you can be as conscious as you want, moving into more, I am activating Xayun Waho, or whatever it is. You can even start to, chant or do your humming and that kind of thing. And it will really fill up the space around you when you do that. You can do that down here too. It's just like, as we're moving up, we're becoming a little more focused on the yang aspects of our consciousness and becoming aware, all right? So that's just a subtle thing. And then when you're done, you can come back down and you can begin the more internal circulations. So another mudra that you can start with is called the diamond mudra, and it is like this, and it is very much focused on the lower dantian. If you move it up here, it might be kind of focused on the heart space, but that gets a little weird. I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody do that. Obviously, you have the thumbs together, and you just have these lightly resting within each other. You see Buddhas like that all the time, right? Or meditators of all kinds. This has a very powerful effect on the lower dantian, and it tends to circulate energy more, all right? So if you want to experiment then with just pulling in energy, let's say you just did the ones that I showed you, all of those poses. You've activated the energy all around you through, your system a little bit, built it up, starting to interact with the earth and the heavens and the heart space in between and all of that. And now you're coming back down, let's say, and then you can immediately go into the Diamond Mudra. Have a couple breaths. This is just right in front of the belly, focusing on the lower dantian, and then you can do it again. So this is qigong, but it's also waidan. It is external alchemy in the sense that I am taking the energy that I have sort of built up around there and then moving it internally through my system, as in Neigong or Neidan. All of the gongs and dans are related. They've all come from each other or have influenced each other. There were different schools of thought, and so modern Chinese medical qigong is very focused on the centers, the energy centers in the body besides the three dantian, and the meridian lines that you'll see in like acupuncture, acupressure maps of energy lines running through the body. Neidan focuses more on the three dantians and the water wheel circulation. The lower dantian converts Jing, which is like vitality, essence, has to do with your sexual potency, your creative life force. That's really where it starts. But the lower dantian is also the conversion starting point for Jing being refined into Qi. And then we move up here, it is Qi being refined into Shen. Then we move up to the upper dantian, and it is Shen being refined into the eternal Tao. So when you're working with an energy like Xayun Waho, you can focus it into those cauldrons, into the dantians, but again, you're still going to have this like expanding thing. So what I found is that you have to do both. You do work with this energy, the internal energies of your body, Jing, Qi, and Shen. However, what happens when you use something like Xayun Waho is all of those energies become more refined automatically anyway. When you're connecting with like the sun, let's say, this is an incredibly Taoist practice, to be honest, So I'm activating, Xayun Waho, and I'm just sort of merging my energy field with the energy field of the sun. The radiant solar energy all around me is coming into my field and becoming part of that field of Xayun Waho. And then I'm again going to the Taoist stuff, going to the internal alchemy stuff, and concentrating it internally. So again, like just starting out with the lower dantian and trying to like fill it up with Xayun Waho, it's like it's going to take forever. It doesn't like to be shoved into those spaces. It likes to expand outwards. Alright, so that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to give you guys some starting off points. The rest of this healing cave of Xayun Waho, I am going to be creating very powerful sacred spaces with this energy, and we're going to be exploring it together. It's also going to be a healing space where you just come to soak up some good energy. That is what I used to do on YouTube all the time, and I do want to get back into that in a sort of service to others kind of way, right? Beyond that, look me up on Patreon if you want to support the work in general. I have a Substack now. I've been writing a lot of articles on, more specifically, my reinvestigation of the Carlos Castaneda stuff and how I've been using the assemblage point in my own work over the years. It will now also carry over into Xayun Waho, and using that energy over the years, what it has done to my system, what it has done to the assemblage point, my assemblage point, and how I'm able to have that fluidity to move it places, and what that actually means. I am not translocating into other places, but the experience of it is so intense. It's beyond just like like passively connecting to something in a meditative way. It's way beyond that. Completely changes your perception. All right. And yeah, I'm also going to be doing interviews with the victims of Ricardo Flores. Again, arrested on 8 counts. I don't want to go out with that though. I'm just going to be doing healing stuff in here, and also trying to focus mostly on merging the Toltec and Taoist stuff. But look out for all the things that are coming out. It's going to be good, if not enlightening, at least when it comes to the more negative stuff. I don't want to focus on that. I love you guys.